Let's begin where it hurts the most, whether you admit it or not. The person lying next to you, the one you call partner, spouse, or even soulmate, might also be your most subtle captor. Not because they mean harm, but because the most dangerous chains are invisible and often mistaken for love. Every glance that makes you explain yourself, every word that pressures you to behave, every silence that shames you into guilt, all of it slowly dismantles your freedom. You thought you were choosing love, but you were choosing self-abandonment in the name of comfort. You want proof. Think of the last time you swallowed your truth to avoid a fight. Think of the last time you acted smaller so they'd feel secure. Now ask yourself, are you really free? Marcus Aurelius, in his brutal simplicity, said, "True strength depends on nothing outside of yourself." And yet, you hand over your emotional peace to the ever-changing moods of someone else. That's not love. That's dependence camouflaged as devotion. Marriage hides behind words like sacred, lifelong, and unbreakable. But strip away the poetry, and what remains? A social contract, one that binds your destiny to the emotional storms of someone who may not even know who they are. And in that contract, what you sacrifice isn't just time or favors. You sacrifice the only thing that ever truly belonged to you, your autonomy. You become an actor in a performance no one asked you to audition for. You smile, you play your part, and inside, you're hollow. The Stoics never promised you comfort. What they offered was clarity through self-discipline. And that's why solitude isn't a punishment, it's a forge. But when's the last time you were truly alone? No screen, no text, no fake conversations filling the silence. Just you. You'll find your mind panics. It screams for noise, for distraction, for someone to pull you away from your reflection. But that terror, that is your proof. Proof that you were never free. Because if you can't sit alone with yourself, you can't own yourself. Now answer this honestly. What in your life have you built that doesn't rely on another person's approval, validation, or affection? Most people have no answer. They've invested so deeply in others that when those people falter, everything collapses. Marriage isn't a haven, it's a sedative. It numbs your pain. It distracts you with rituals and routines. It promises permanence, but delivers stagnation. And one day, you wake up, realizing you've traded your greatness for a few crumbs of stability. The Stoics spoke of an inner citadel, a fortress of the soul untouched by the world. But how can you build that when every brick is laid with someone else's permission? How can you be invincible if your mood crumbles at a raised eyebrow or an unanswered text? You're not building a citadel. You're building a shrine to emotional volatility. And every day you stay in that illusion, you're spinning the barrel in a game of psychological roulette. You chase connection to avoid loneliness, but end up lonelier than ever because you've lost the only connection that mattered, the one with yourself. You seek love to feel whole, but lose pieces of yourself just to keep it. You crave stability and hand over the keys to your sanity to someone who can't even control their own mind. We call this commitment. What a clever lie. Real love, if it exists, can only come from abundance, from someone who has already conquered their own chaos, who doesn't need to enslave themselves in order to feel alive. But how rare is that? Almost non-existent. What's common are fractured people clinging to each other, hoping two broken halves will magically form a whole. They don't heal, they chain themselves together. And then society applauds the prison as if it were salvation. We're told the wedding is the pinnacle of happiness. But if you look with honest eyes, it's nothing more than the ceremony of your surrender. The applause, the photos, the rings, it's all ritual. And behind the ritual is renunciation. The most brutal truth is this: marriage doesn't just rob you of autonomy, it robs you of destiny. Every project abandoned for the sake of togetherness, every dream postponed to keep the peace, every sacrifice you make that was never necessary, these are nails in the coffin of your potential. And you do it smiling, convinced that it's noble, because no one dares to tell you the truth. Marriage is the most elegant suicide a man can commit while alive. Solitude, the thing you've been taught to fear, is not a curse. It's the hidden path to greatness. Alone, you finally bear the weight of your thoughts without distraction. Alone, you realize happiness isn't begged for, it's forged. Alone, you begin to construct the inner citadel, a fortress no betrayal, no loss, no death can bring down. But most men reject this. They'd rather dress in white, smile for the cameras, and sign their own sentence. It's easier to be applauded in chains than endure the discomfort of an empty room. That's the truth. Freedom hurts. Freedom demands you face yourself without masks, and that's precisely why most men run from it. So ask yourself this: if tomorrow your partner vanished, what would remain of you? If your answer is nothing, then you were never truly yourself. You were just a shadow attached to another shadow. This is the truth no one dares speak aloud. Most people don't love. They cling. They chain themselves and call it romance. And marriage, far from redeeming that mistake, seals it forever with applause, with flowers, with rings. And right now, as you hear this, I know part of you is uncomfortable. You want to defend your relationship. And another part of you knows this is true. That discomfort, that's your soul rebelling against the chains. If you're strong enough to face it, you'll realize something terrifying. You were never in love. You were imprisoned. And there's only one way out: to claim solitude as the highest act of self-respect. You were raised to believe that union was inevitable, that walking alone was failure, that only marriage proves your worth. But none of these ideas came from your reason. They were programmed into you long before you could question them. You've been repeating a script you didn't write, living a role you never chose. Look closer at the trap. When you're young, they say you're incomplete if you don't have a partner. As an adult, they push you to marry. Once married, they shame you if you don't have children. And when you finally have them, they tell you your life no longer belongs to you. Do you see the pattern? There is always a new demand to ensure you never fully belong to yourself. And marriage is the heaviest of them all, because it's the institutionalization of emotional dependence, the signature you give away so that someone else can own your peace. They've convinced you that suffering for love is noble, that endurance of pain somehow proves authenticity. But look around. Are most marriages temples of love? Or are they silent battlegrounds where resentment simmers behind polite smiles? Couples who can barely stand each other still share a house, not out of devotion, but out of fear. The fear of emptiness, the fear of starting over, the fear of solitude. They trade passion for convenience, dress up monotony with birthdays and anniversaries, and call it a life together. And here's the trap. Psychology shows us that emotional dependence slowly erodes identity. At first, you give up small things, your hobbies, your time, your solitude. Then larger sacrifices follow, dreams postponed, ambitions abandoned, until one day you look in the mirror and don't recognize who you were before. They call this maturity. They call it commitment, but it's nothing but amnesia. The Stoics warned against this illusion. They taught, never place your peace in what you cannot control. And tell me, what control do you have over another person's thoughts, desires, or moods? None. So how can you place your entire emotional life into something as unstable as another human being? That's not stability. It's madness. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul decays when dragged around by passions it doesn't understand. And today, millions of souls decay in marriages sustained not by love, but by the fear of collapse. Men chain their happiness to the hope that a partner will provide stability, when in truth, the only stability is the one forged within. But marriage doesn't just drain your soul, it devours your time. And time is the only resource you can never get back. Think about the endless arguments, the petty negotiations, the daily concessions you waste energy on. Think about the hours spent justifying yourself, defending your choices, suppressing your desires, all for the sake of keeping peace in a structure that wasn't built for your freedom, but for your domestication. While you argue over who does the dishes, your greatness rots. While you waste energy decoding their moods, your purpose dissolves. Seneca put it bluntly, "It's not that we have little time, but that we waste much of it. And few things waste more of a man's life than an empty marriage." By contrast, solitude reorganizes your perception of time. Alone, you don't have to justify your existence. You don't have to beg for permission to chase your passions. Every minute becomes your own again, fertile ground for ideas, discipline, and strength. Do you see the irony? The very society that teaches you to fear solitude is itself trapped in dead routines, loveless commitments, and suffocating obligations. Everyone knows freedom lies in solitude, yet almost no one dares to endure the silence, because the real battle isn't against loneliness, it's against yourself. And marriage is the perfect excuse to never fight that battle. It keeps you distracted, busy with endless trivialities, avoiding the terrifying question, "Who am I?" when no one is watching. That question is the gateway to freedom. But it's also the reason most men run straight into the arms of marriage, because it's easier to drown in noise than confront your reflection in silence. Every time you run from solitude, you're running from your own greatness. Every time you bury yourself in a relationship to escape silence, you're confessing that you cannot carry the weight of your own mind. And that's the cruel irony. Most people don't marry for love, they marry for fear. Fear of emptiness, fear of irrelevance, fear of being left behind. But fear builds nothing except prisons, and marriage becomes the most elegant of them all. Look closely. Two dependent people don't create harmony. They create a vicious cycle of anxiety. One fears being abandoned, the other fears not being enough. Both chain themselves together in a pact of insecurity, mistaking it for devotion. And so, every reproach, every need for validation, every demand for control is nothing but unspoken fear spilling out into the relationship. Here lies the psychological truth. What you refuse to face in yourself, you will project onto your partner. That's why marriage doesn't heal wounds, it magnifies them. Think about the most common arguments between couples. They aren't about great philosophical divides, they're about trivialities. An unanswered call, a delayed reply, a misinterpreted glance. These petty conflicts have nothing to do with reality. They're symptoms of inner unrest. When you lack inner peace, every silence becomes rejection. Every absence feels like betrayal. And what begins as romance devolves into a cold war, where both fight for control over the other's emotions. This is the invisible slavery no one warns you about. Your mental energy, the most sacred resource you have, is wasted decoding expressions, replaying arguments, interpreting gestures, and imagining motives. Instead of building dreams, your mind becomes a battlefield of paranoia. Marriage turns into the ultimate distraction, the machine of constant worry. And while you exhaust yourself sustaining a fragile structure, life itself slips by. And here, Stoicism cuts like a blade. If your peace depends on someone else, it was never truly yours. Storing your happiness in another's hands is like leaving your treasure in your neighbor's house and expecting it to be safe. How long before it's lost? What sense does it make to call happiness something that can vanish in a jealous rage, in a betrayal, or in a fleeting shift of mood? True peace, Marcus Aurelius would remind us, can only be built within a fortress that no outside force can breach. But that kind of fortress demands courage. The courage to face solitude without anesthesia, without a comforting embrace to dull the sting. Pause here for a moment. Think about it. How many of your life's decisions have been shaped not by your vision, but by your partner's expectations, or by the mere hope of having one? The school you chose, the job you took, the friends you left behind, the passions you buried. Each concession was not a gesture of romance, it was an amputation of self. And the collection of all these amputations is what society dares to glorify as marriage. But strip away the facade and ask, what remains of you? What pieces of your original fire survived the endless compromise? What dreams did you silence for the sake of peace? What remains is not a man in his fullness, but a ghost, a faded echo of what he could have been. And the most perverse part is this: while you bleed yourself dry in a marriage that drains you, the world doesn't pause. Your opportunities don't wait. Your potential doesn't freeze. Time keeps moving. And every hour you spend shackled to a suffocating union is an hour you'll never get back. And here comes the most brutal truth yet. It's not your partner stealing it from you. It's you. You are complicit in your own enslavement because you chose the illusion of comfort over the rawness of freedom. Marriage isn't sacred, it's transactional. You trade your freedom for a fleeting sense of belonging. But the price is astronomical: your purpose, your peace, your greatness. And by the time you realize it, it may already be too late. That's why the only true rebellion, the only authentic act of strength, is to walk alone, to endure the silence, to build the citadel within. Because in solitude, the mind hardens. In solitude, the spirit becomes untouchable. It's not about hate and love. It's about tearing away the masks. Love should be a free act, not a prison sentence. And freedom can only exist where there is no need. As long as you keep demanding from others what you're too afraid to cultivate within yourself, what you call love will always be dependence, dressed up in ritual. So the question becomes, do you have the courage to rip off the mask and confront the reflection staring back at you? Here is the point where the truth becomes almost unbearable. No one is coming to rescue you, not your partner, not your family, not your friends. The cell you sit in is one you built with your own hands. The silence of solitude isn't a punishment. It's the key you've been carrying all along, too afraid to use. And when you finally turn it, when you open that door and face the void, you discover something marriage can never give you: the absolute power of belonging only to yourself. That's when the mask shatters. You see romantic love for what it is: a convenient story, a fairy tale designed to pacify restless souls. What remains, naked and undeniable, is the truth you've run from your entire life. You are enough. You always were. Marriage was never proof of your worth. It was only a distraction from it. The end of this path isn't an altar, a contract, or a shared bed. The real destination is an inner citadel so unbreakable that no betrayal, no abandonment, no death can breach it. A disciplined mind, an iron will, a spirit untamed by need. That is the true triumph. Not applause, not rings, not vows whispered in fragile moments of passion, but the silent strength of a man who doesn't need external crutches to stand tall. And if one day you do encounter genuine love, it will not come from lack. It will not come from fear. It will come from abundance. Two free souls meeting, not to complete each other, but to walk side by side without chains. So now, the decision is yours. Keep living the script they handed you. Keep applauding your chains, or dare to walk alone, stripped of illusions, armed only with your solitude. Will you be the prisoner disguised as a romantic, or the warrior who walks in silence, master of his destiny? If these words unsettled you, if they struck like a mirror you didn't want to face, leave it in the comments. The inner citadel is mine. That way I'll know you didn't just listen, you faced the truth. And if you want more of these uncomfortable awakenings, more truth no one dares to tell you, then subscribe. Not because I ask, but because you know deep down you need more than comfort. You need clarity. But before I leave you, I'll give you the most honest farewell possible. Forget me. Don't think of me tomorrow. Don't quote me. Don't even talk about this video. Because if you truly understood the message, you won't need anyone to remind you of it. The echo in your own mind will be enough. And if that echo still terrifies you, then you've already learned the lesson. You still haven't mastered solitude. So until you do, good luck in your cell, or welcome to your freedom.